Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Srinmatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridintasto Hyabhadrani Vidunoti Suhrutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 15, text 4, 5, and 6. Ayam tu pratamo rajñam puman pratayita yashaha praturnama maharajo bhavishyati pratusravaha. Ayam tu pratamo rajñam puman pratayita yashaha praturnama maharajo bhavishyati pratusravaha. Ayam tu pratamo rajñam puman pratayita yashaha praturnama maharajo bhavishyati pratushravaha. Synonyms: I am, this, tu, then, pratamaha, the first, rajñam, of the kings, puman, the male, pratayita, will expand, yashaha, reputation, pratuhu, Maharaj Pratu, nama, by name, Maharajaha, the great king, bhavishyati, will become, pratushravaha, the of wide renown. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: of the two, the male will be able to expand his reputation throughout the world. His name will be Prithu. Indeed, he will be the first among kings. Purport: there are different types of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Shastras, it is said that Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva and Ananta are all very powerful incarnations of the Brahman feature of the Lord. Similarly, Sachipati or Indra, the king of heaven, is an incarnation of lusty feature of the Lord. Aniruddha is an incarnation of Lord's mind. Similarly, King Prithu is an incarnation of the ruling forces of the Lord. Thus, the saintly persons and great sages predicted the future activities of King Prithu, who was already explained as partial incarnation of a plenary expansion of the Lord. Text 5. इयं च सुदती देवी गुणभूषणभूषणा अर्चिर्नाम वरारोह पृतुम् एवावरुन्धति इयं च सुदती देवी गुणभूषणभूषणा अर्चिर्नाम वरारोह पृतुम् एवावरुन्धति इयं च सुदती देवी गुणभूषणभूषणा अर्चिर्नाम वरारोह Pratum eva varundati. Synonyms: Iyam, this female child, Cha, and Sudati, who has very nice teeth, Devi, the goddess of fortune, Guna, by good qualities, Bhushana, ornaments, Bhushana, who beautifies, Archihi, Archi, Nama, by name, Vara Aroha, very beautiful, Pritum, unto the king Pritu, Eva, certainly, Avarundati, being very much attached. Translation is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The female has such beautiful teeth and beautiful qualities that she will actually beautify the ornaments she wears. Her name will be Archi. In the future, she will accept King Prithu as her husband. Text 6. एष साक्षात् धरेर् अंशो जातो लोक रिरक्षया इयं च तत्परा हि श्रीर् अनुजज्ञे न पायनी एष साक्षात् धरेर् अंशो जातो लोक रिरक्षया इयं च तत्परा हि श्रीर् अनुजज्ञे न पायिनी एष साक्षात् धरेर् अंशो जातो लोक रिरक्षया Iyam cha tatpara hi shrir anujajne napayini. Synonyms: Eshaha, this male, Sakshat, directly, Harehe, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Amsaha, partial representative, Jataha, born, Loka, the entire world, Rirakshaya, with a desire to protect. Iyam, this female, Cha, also, Tatpara, very much attached to him, He, certainly, Shrihi, the goddess of fortune, Anujajne, took birth. Anapayini, inseparable. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: in the form of King Prithu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared through part of his potency to protect the people of the world. The goddess of fortune is the constant companion of the Lord and therefore she has incarnated partially as Archi to become King Prithu's queen. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, that whenever one sees an extraordinary power, he should conclude that a specific partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present. There are innumerable such personalities, but not all of them are direct Vishnu Tattva plenary expansions of the Lord. Many living entities are classified among the Shakti Tattvas, which such incarnations empowered for specific purposes are known as Sakti Avesh Avatar. King Prithu was such a Sakti Avesh avatar of the Lord. Similarly, Archi, King Prithu's wife, was a Sakti Avesh avatar of the goddess of fortune. नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I humbly bow down to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. And a very happy and a Krishna consciously prosperous New Year to everybody. And I bow down to all the assembled Vaishnavas and seek their mercy so that I grow spiritually in this year as well. So, so we are in the fourth canto, 15th chapter, text 4 to 6. Just as a primer, so we saw in the previous chapters like how Prithu Maharaj was born. So he was King Vena, as we know. He was a very cruel king, and by churning his thigh and shoulders, thigh actually brought forth all the inauspicious qualities, and then from his shoulders Prithu Maharaj was born, and well, Prithu Maharaj along with him, the Archi Devi, she was also born. So in this particular set of verses, Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining the appearance of King Prithu and Archi. So here, the first verse in the text 4, um, the first the explanation of how Prithu Maharaj was born is given, and in the second verse of the fifth verse, the explanation of how Archi Devi was born is given, and the descriptions in terms of their physical features of Archi Devi, that she has a very beautiful teeth, and in the third verse, in the sixth verse, it's mentioned that both of them were Sakti Avesh avatars, and Prithu Maharaj being the Sakti Avesh avatar of Lord Krishna, and then Archi Devi being the Sakti Avesh avatar of goddess of fortune or Lakshmi Devi. So there are a few important points which are being mentioned here, and the purport Srila Prabhupada talks about how he actually makes a reference to the different incarnations or the avatars of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have seen in the first canto, we have seen the different types of avatars. There are 6 categories of avatars, namely Purusha avatars, Leela avatars, Guna avatars, Manmantra avatars, Yuga avatars, and Shakti Aves avatars. So there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is said, Ekecha Amsa Kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So Krishna is the one Supreme Personality of Godhead, but from him you have Amsha Kala. There are different incarnations or different avatars, and these avatars are documented as these 6 categories. So Purusha avatars, as we know, so the Lord Krishna himself incarnates as Karanodak Sai Vishnu, Garbhodak Sai Vishnu, and Kshirodak Sai Vishnu. So as Karanodak Sai Vishnu, he lays in the causal ocean, and in the as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, he is lying on the universal ocean, and in the Kshirodak Sai Vishnu, he is lying in the ocean of milk. So these are, even among these, there are different gradations, but these are all Purusha avatars. And then we have Leela avatars, where the Lord performs specific Leela or pastimes. And so we have different examples for this, namely the Hamsa avatar, you have Kurma avatar, Matsya avatar. All these are Leela avatars, which are specifically associated with the pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we have Guna avatars, where to make this universe function. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead incarnates himself in different modes. Or so for the mode of goodness, he's represented by Brahmadev, and then in the mode of passion, he's represented by Brahmadev, and in the mode of goodness, he's represented by Vishnu, and in the mode of ignorance, he's represented by Shiva. So that's the Guna avatars. And then we have Manvantara avatars. So in Brahma's day, which has like 1,000 Chaturyugas, it's divided into 14 periods of Manus, and these are called Manvantaras. So in each of those Manvantaras, you have different incarnations, and these are called Manvantara avatars. And we also have Yuga avatars, meaning for each Yuga, you will have an avatar of Supreme Personality Godhead. So Krishna says himself that. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्. He says, and then he says, संभवामि युगे युगे परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. So each yuga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself incarnates. So those are called Yuga avatars. So in the Kali Yuga, we have the current Yuga we are in. We have the Lord incarnate Himself as the son of Sachi Devi, Sachinandan Gaurahari. So each of these yuga, you will have the incarnations of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Sakti Avesh avatars. These are the empowered incarnations. Actually, the Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that there are no limit to such Sakti Avesh avatars. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the purport to the fourth verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that so it is said that the Garuda, Lord Shiva, Ananta, they're all powerful incarnations. So what this says is that even the Sakti-Avesh avatars, they are also Jiva Tattvas, but they are empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's no limit to the potency or the opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is no limit to the Sakti-Avesh avatar. So here Sri Prabhupada makes mention about a few of those Shakti Avesh avatars here, and where he says Sachipati Indra Dev is a representation of the lusty feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he says Anuruddha is an incarnation of the Lord's mind, and King Pratu is an incarnation of the ruling force of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and so here that's the reason why the great sages they wanted to establish dharma, because King Vena has reigned a lot of hell and terror. So they killed him, and then they wanted to establish religion and also make sure that the proper propagation of Krishna consciousness happens in this society. So they created, they requested the Supreme Personality of God and prayed to him, and then they had Prithu Maharaj, who was none other than the incarnation of the ruling force of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the Shakti Avesh Avatar portion. So there are a lot of references to Shakti Avesh Avatar. So in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada talks about there is no limit to the Shakti Avesh Avatar, and that we cannot count them. So there we have seen in multiple instances. For example, Lord Parashuram is supposed to be a Shakti Avesh Avatar himself, and Parashuram he is the incarnation of courage personified, and he wanted to make sure that the earth is rid of all the miscreants. Narada Muni himself is a Shakti Avesh avatar, and he represents the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anytime when we think about, Sri Prabhupada writes in the purport that anytime we see somebody is extremely powerful, we need to understand that the power comes from the Supreme Personality of God Himself. So he refers to the Bhagavad Gita verse where Krishna says, Shabdakke Paurusham Rishuhu. So where he says very clearly that the ability in man. So wherever you see very powerful or very strong and very powerful people, we need to understand that it's a representation of Supreme Personality of Godhead's energy. And so there is a reference to this in the third canto, fifth chapter, text 21. The purport of that particular verse, Srila Prabhupada writes a lot in detail about the Shakti Avesh Avatar. He says that the Lord then pointed out that there is no limit to the Shakti Avesh Avatar, and they cannot be counted. However, some can be mentioned as examples. Shakti Avesh Avatars are of two kinds: direct and indirect. When the Lord Himself comes, He is called Shakshat, or the direct Shakti Avesh Avatar. And when He empowers some living entity to represent Him, that living entity is called an indirect or Avesh incarnation. Examples of indirect avatars are the four Kumaras: Narada, Prithu, Parashurama. These are actually living entities, but there is specific power given to them by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When a specific opulence of the Supreme Lord is invested in the specific entities, they are called Avesh avatars. The four Kumaras specifically represent the Supreme Lord's opulence of knowledge, Narada represents the devotional service of the Lord, and devotional service is also represented by Lord Chaitanya, who is considered to be a full representation of the devotional service. In Brahma, the opulence of creative power is invested, and in the King Prithu, the power of maintaining the living entities is invested. Similarly, in Parashurama, the power for killing evil elements is invested. As well as the Vibhuti, or the special favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is concerned, it is described in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that a living entity who appears to be especially powerful or beautiful should be known to be especially favored by the Supreme Lord. Examples of direct or Sakshad avatars are Sesha incarnation and Ananta incarnation. In Ananta, the power of sustaining all the planets is invested, and in Sesha incarnation, the power for serving the Supreme Lord is invested. So here, Srila Prabhupada makes a reference to there are two types of Shakti-Avesh avatars. One is the direct Shakti-Avesh avatar and the indirect Shakti-Avesh avatar. And here Srila Prabhupada says that the examples of Shakshad or direct avatars are Ananta incarnation or the Sesha incarnation, and the others are indirect incarnations like King Prithu and Narada and all the other things, other people who are mentioned here in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. So one thing we have to understand here is that even though the material world was created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so for the jiva, for enjoyment separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so just like a father who is always very eager about a lost son to make sure he comes back to his own household, Supreme Personality of Godhead is very merciful, and through his because of his mercy, he incarnates himself in different forms, and as we saw the six categories of avatars, and he comes from time and again, and he because of his empowered acharyas, because of his Shakti Avesh avatars, so we are time and again in this material world reminded about the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also are reminded about our lost relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, all of them are even are representations of Sakti Avesh Avatar. And Srila Prabhupada even mentioned that they even in the other religions like Prophet Muhammad and then Jesus Christ, all these are empowered acharyas, and they are examples of Shakti Avesh Avatars, and they are representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself to help uplift the material the people in this material world, so that they know what spiritual life is, so that they can take to Krishna consciousness. So that's the costless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through which He incarnates Himself into different avatars, so that even when the Jiva wants to enjoy, he gets an opportunity, enjoy separately from Krishna, he gets an opportunity to understand and reclaim his lost position with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those were some of the points I could gather on this topic, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity for